Okay, the Board of Education of the Livermore Valley Joint Unified School District is now reconvening to our open session, and we'll begin with the flag salute. And so we have some students from East Avenue, Tyler Scott and Annabelle Stein, who are going to lead us. So if you'd come up to the microphone, please.
Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much, and please come meet the board members. Let's see, we'll be really quick about our closed session. There were no items to bring out of our closed session, so we'll move right along. And to the meeting procedures, this is a regular meeting of the Board of Education of Livermore Valley Joint Unified School District, and our primary focus is the education of students in this district. During this meeting, members of the public will have the opportunity to share information and voice their ideas and concerns regarding matters within the jurisdiction of this public agency. During the board's discussion of each agenda item, there will be time for you to have the opportunity to speak to that item. If the topic you want to address is not on the agenda, although this is not mandatory, we would encourage you to please fill out and turn in a TAN speaker card. For those who need to know what TAN is, that's TAN. And if you are speaking on something that is on the agenda, please fill out a blue speaker card. Again, it's not mandatory to do that. And I will call your names in no particular order to speak to the board for no more than 3 minutes unless otherwise noted. Our meetings are televised on cable channel 28 on Wednesdays at 7 p.m. and Saturdays at 9 a.m. And with that, do we have any changes to the agenda?
Mr. President, we do not have any changes to the agenda this evening.
Okay, so we do have recognitions, however.
So thank you. This is the most delightful part of every meeting. It's our opportunity to recognize those on our staff or in the community who make sure that our district is one of the best. And we'll start off. I'd like to introduce Mrs. Alberta Pilliard. She is the acting vice principal from East Avenue Middle School, California Distinguished School. And I'll ask her to come up and do the honors of a very special introduction of some hardworking staff.
Thank you, Superintendent Kelly and President and board members. I think I'll sit down. It's my pleasure to introduce the clerical staff from East Avenue Middle School. There are 4 women, one of whom is not here right now, who serve the school district beautifully every single day. They're professional. They collaborate with the staff, the students, and the teachers at East Avenue. They just make everybody feel very, very welcome at the school, and they are just a joy to work with. I've really been enjoying being back at East Avenue Middle School. So with that, I will present the certificates here. First is the principal's secretary, Kim Dubovich. Next is School Secretary Connie Summers. Yes, stay up here. And third is Shannon Lutz, also School Secretary. And Kelly Cartwright is not here tonight.
Next, I will ask Ms. Marianne Fraze to come up, and she is going to do the honors of a very special introduction of someone who's a longtime community member and also a staff member who goes far above and beyond his call of duty.
I'm here to give a recognition for Brad Morsoli, so if you don't mind coming up. Brad is one of our adapted PE teachers in the district, and what he has specifically helped to do is coordinate our Special Olympics program with the SELPA. It started last year where we coordinated with the other districts, and through his help, he's helped to organize hundreds of kids over the past 2 years, attend the programs in the other districts when they've represented, but also here where we have done the track and field in the spring. And he has continued to do that this year, where we have expanded it as a SELPA. And this organization is just not coordinating with teachers, but coordinating with families, teachers, the driving, the transportation, the field trip forms, and everything else you could possibly imagine, particularly as it continues to grow. And he does this with great spirit, with great love and joy, and it's infectious that it is because of him it has continued to grow over the last 2 years and will continue to grow as we move forward. So thank you for all that you do.
And the next item on our agenda is the student board member reports. And it's nice to see you this week. You had a nice substitute for you last week. So, Ms. Dreyer, if you'd like to tell us about Livermore. Thank you.
All right. Good evening, President Dunlop, Superintendent Bowers, and fellow board trustees. So the trimester is coming to a close at Livermore High School, and on campus, the vibe is excited to go off to break, but then also really excited to break out to those new schedules, new classes, and a lot of students aren't experiencing difficulties with their schedules, so they're really just excited to take those finals and get on with the next trimester. So a couple of weeks ago, our football, cheer, dance, band, color guard, and shooting stars had their senior night. It was very exciting. It was a huge extravaganza for all of them to graduate. We had over 42 seniors between all of them, and it was the first year that shooting stars got to partake in it. And if you could have seen their faces, it was a huge experience for them. We had one of the students who ran through the tunnel, dragging her father along. She was so excited to get to the end. Our cheer and dance performed at the halftime along with shooting stars, which received a huge support from the crowd. People were screaming from both sides, and it was something to really unite the schools. Girls basketball hosted the annual Cops and Cowboys, which shooting stars got to perform at. The game was really well. It had a great turnout, and it was really competitive. I'm not sure how it ended up turning out, but I know that it was pretty close throughout the game. Girls and boys water polo made NCS. Girls water polo won the first round, but sadly didn't win the second. And boys are very encouraged to continue doing this next year because a lot of them were freshmen and sophomores, which is pretty huge for them. Yeah, so they're really excited to keep going for the next year. Girls soccer has their first scrimmage today in Castro Valley, which is exciting for them because they're really eager to kick off the season, along with the other winter sports who are practicing and make sure they do their best performance this season. Recently, 3 students signed for full rides at colleges due to their athletics. We had 1 for baseball and 1 for softball, or actually 2 for softball, yeah. Leadership will be having new spirit gear for the students coming up. We are ordering them before break, so when everyone comes back, they can get all the gear and create some more spirit for the winter sports. Our special ed has a new program that's coming to our campus, and it's really exciting. One of our staff lounges is going to be turned into a independent living facility where because it already has a kitchen in it, they'll have linens, they'll have a dryer and washer, so they can practice every day independent living for those who will eventually live on their own. And it's really nice because it's a couple doors down from one of the classrooms and right across campus for the others. We also have a algebra intervention program that will be coming to our campus, and it's already being put in place, but it's basically a program that won't let students have the opportunity to fail. They'll either get an A or a B or nothing else. What the program will do is if a student receives a C or lower on any quiz or exam, they'll do an online miniature course and then take a little assessment. And if the assessment says you're ready to retake this, then they'll retake the test, and that will be their new grade. So it's basically the school saying, you're going to get an A or a B. We're not going to let you fail. So it's really making sure that no one's left behind. Our student who went to Costa Rica over the summer, her name is Mara Han. She's actually the lead success story for the San Francisco Bay Area AFS scholarship and fundraising. So she's our character of the month in our newspaper because it's really exciting that she's getting to share this story with so many students. Our senior favorites were announced, which were very, very exciting throughout campus, as we had a really broad horizon of who was in it and who got picked and nominated for all the choices. Our Safe and Sober Grad Night is having a Christmas boutique on November 21st, and it'll be all throughout the day at the school. We'll be also tomorrow having a tobacco usage prevention education event, which is where students will be able to come to the quad. Actually, probably be moved to student due to the rain. But they'll be able to, on tombstones, write the name of family members that they've lost due to tobacco-related diseases and pay respects, but also put it out there to, just one small campus, how many people have lost family members or loved ones. But then there will also be other tombstones that outlined in yellow that will symbolize it's not too late for family members or friends that they know are still smoking, and really put it out there that we really want you to quit. Currently, that's all that's going on at Livermore High School. We're really eager for the next trimester. That's all for now. Thank you.
Good, thank you. Ms. Schultz, please.
Good evening, Superintendent Bowers, President Dunlop, and members of the board. We are in our final week of trimester 1 at Granada, and we're looking forward to ending the trimester on a positive note, so hopefully finals aren't too tough. In sports, our winter sports are now underway. I'm pretty sure most of the tryouts have been held, and if not, they're being held this week. So some of the sports have already begun practicing, such as basketball, and they're going to have their first scrimmage game tomorrow, so we're excited about that. And then other sports will begin practicing after the break. Our boys football beat Amador in the first round of NCS to advance to the second round, where we'll be playing De La Salle on Friday at De La Salle. Our girls water polo team advanced to the NCS semifinals, making them one of the top 4 teams in NCS. So we're really proud of their efforts this year, and we're really proud to see how far they went. Our girls cross country team will compete in the NCS champions this weekend, where they will attempt to become the 4-time defending champions. So we're really proud of all the hard work they've put in over the past years and all the amazing results they've had in their races. In the world of academics, our teachers have been researching IB programs with the hope of implementing the program in the near future to better the quality of education for all students at Granada, particularly 11th and 12th graders, for whom it will be applied. So hopefully we'll give a greater, more, I want to say global sense of education. From what I understand, it's to help students have a curriculum that can be applied throughout the world, not just particularly in one state. And it will be, they'll replace some AP classes and some honors courses. Our finals will be held this week on Thursday and Friday, with periods 1, 2, and 5 finals on Thursday, and our periods 3 and 4 finals on Friday. So after 12:20 on Friday, students will be released to break, so hopefully they'll have a relaxing time and a great holiday. Our past school-wide events, we held a Slime Time rally 2 Thursdays ago to recognize our fall sports and to pump up our student body for the rivalry game against Livermore. So whenever we have a big game, we try to hold a rally to get students excited and to recognize our athletes for their performance that season. Our Interact Club hosted their annual Coin Wars fundraiser, and they raised nearly $900 for their international project for this year. And that project is to provide solar cookers to impoverished people in the Middle East to help them have a more sustainable lifestyle, and also to help the environment as well, because solar cookers are a lot more efficient and effective way to cook food without contributing to the pollution of the environment. For upcoming school-wide events, we have an art show tomorrow at 8 to 4 in Mrs. Thornier's room, which is room 601, and it displays all of the artwork for all of her classes for trimester 1. And it's a really great way for the students to display their artwork and what they're proud of, and for other students to be able to get excited about their art courses that they may be taking in the later trimesters, as all students are required to take at least one unit of visual and performing arts. So if any of you would like to stop by, you're welcome to. There's always popcorn and lots of pretty artwork. And in our leadership activities, we're continuing with our No Shave November fundraiser for this month, which is going to support our Granada Fights campaign, which is all the proceeds go to the Jimmy V Foundation, which funds for cancer research. So we're really excited about that, and I've seen a lot of interesting beards around campus. And we've also been writing letters to the United States troops that are spending their holidays away from their families through Project SAM. And this is to thank them for their service and to wish them a happy holiday season, so they know that we've been thinking of them and that we're proud of all their accomplishments and how many sacrifices they've made for us in our freedom. And we also, I want to say, we had at least 7 students do National Signing Day last week, and it was really exciting. We have some students signing to Pepperdine. There's one in North Dakota for softball. Nick Silverthorne got a scholarship to UC Berkeley for swimming, and Greta Kolmus is signing to UC Davis for water polo. So we're just really excited to see all that they're doing. Oh, and our Casey Soltis, one of our star football players and also a really great baseball player, he's going to University of Oregon. So we're excited to see all of the strides they make in their athletic careers in college, and we're really excited to have them as members of the Granada community. That's all for now, so thank you.
Good, thank you very much. And next on our agenda is the Employee Association. LEA has ceded their time to the Interlatin International Baccalaureate thing for later. And so we'll move right ahead, and maybe at that time we'll have some additional comments. So let's move on to communications from the public, and this is the time to do that, either in writing or verbally, on any item that is not on the agenda. The board may listen to comments or ask staff clarifying questions, but they will neither discuss nor take action at this meeting on topics that are not on the agenda in accordance with the Brown Act. If you'd like to address a topic that is not on this evening's agenda, now's the time to do so. We ask that you limit your comments to 3 minutes so that each speaker may speak once. I have no cards. Is there anyone who would like to speak? Yes, please. Ms. Cortez.
Good evening, trustees. Well, I just wanted to say some thank yous and appreciation of the Race to the Flagpole. I thought it was really wonderful that the Morosoli family donated a flagpole, so we have a flagpole there now. And Mike Nagel for organizing it, and Mr. Gomes for doing an excellent job announcing, and Bob Bronson for taking pictures. My family enjoyed my picture at the end. And then also, another thank you to Brad Morosoli. He probably doesn't even realize that my family really cherished that he would post the girls' volleyball link for Granada, because we have some, Coach Cortez and and one of my nieces play. So it was wonderful to have that link there to be able to see that. So thank you.
Good. Thank you very much. Do we have any correspondence?
We do, Mr. President.
Please.
We have one letter from Phil Abram, who is, I think, president of the Evolve Board of Directors, and they have voted to award this board the Grace Abbott Leadership Award for being one of the first 13 school boards to publicly support Proposition 13 reform, which we did in September, I believe. We also have one more letter from the Alameda County Superintendent of Schools, Sheila Jordan, announcing that the team from Alameda County visited Maryland Avenue School, which is a QEIA school, and under the provisions of QEIA, they have to get visited with respect to the Williams Act, which requires that there are sufficient standards-aligned textbooks for students to use in class and take home. they found that we were in compliance, and they express appreciation to the cooperative staff we have.
Good. Thank you very much. And now we are to the information discussion items. So, Mrs. Superintendent, would you please introduce this one?
Certainly. Thank you, Mr. President. Next, I'll ask Mrs. Cindy Alba, our Assistant Superintendent of Educational Services, to do the formal introductions of quite a few folks who will be here to give you more information updated about the International Baccalaureate process. There's a lot of buzz in the community. We even heard from our school board representative here about the excitement that's coming as a result of the pursuit of the International Baccalaureate program. And so now we're going to hear from actually the people who are doing the work at the site.
So, good evening, President Dunlop, trustee, Superintendent Bowers. So, as Superintendent Bowers says, there has been a lot of buzz in the community about the International Baccalaureate program. And if you remember, about a year ago, we were here talking about applying for our the initial stages of becoming an IB school. And I know for years we talked about it, and it's so exciting that we're in that process. I say we, I should say they. This school is incredible. The teachers, the entire staff embracing this journey, which they're going to tell you about this evening. So this evening we have Principal Laura Limbo and our IB coordinator, Amy Hasselt, who are going to share with us where they've been on their journey and where they're going. And I think it'll be very exciting to see what is happening. So I'm going to ask Amy and Laura to come on up. And they do have a number of people from their staff here that they may want to also recognize.
So good evening, President Dunlap, Superintendent Bowers, and board trustees. Last fall, I believe it was the October board meeting, I shared that the Mitchell staff and school community had a very strong desire to pursue an International Baccalaureate World School authorization. We discussed with you the benefits of our students, as well as the work involved to make this a reality. And with your full support and encouragement, we completed the requirements for candidacy for both the primary years and the middle years program. We developed an IB steering committee. We organized parent information events, and the staff attended IB trainings to prepare us for this implementation phase. And tonight, we would like to share with you the journey we have taken to transform Joe Mitchell to become an IB school. Amy Hasselt, our IB coordinator, along with the help of our staff, have put together a visual collection of artifacts that represent the changes we've all observed, not just in our students, but in our staff and our school community. Amy?
Thank you. And thank you, President Dunlop, trustees, and Superintendent Bowers for allowing us to come here tonight and to share everything that we've been working so hard on. So for the last 6 months, probably, since about June, when we started this journey, our staff has been doing quite a bit of work. We've been working diligently on studying the IB, studying the Common Core, studying the next generation science standards, and trying to align all those principles together and transforming the way that we teach and how students learn at our school. So this has involved creating year-long plans, and for our teachers in this slide, these are our 6th through 8th grade teachers, and this was actually yesterday at a training that we were given by the IB, provided by our consultant through this journey. They've been aligning the curriculum across all subject areas to find interdisciplinary links, to create development of conceptual understanding that deepens throughout the years of the program, and to build teaching and learning opportunities for skill development in the curriculum. They create units of inquiry, and these subject areas cover content with links between the content according to the state standards and the Common Core. And these are based around a global theme. So we ask our teachers to explore with the students concepts of who we are and our shared responsibility in the world. Our teachers plan these units collaboratively And this includes our support staff, our learning specialists, our librarian, our reading teacher. The whole school is involved in this transformation. For our TK through 5 teachers, they've also been working collaboratively to develop year-long plans. These consist of 6 units of inquiry, and these are created collaboratively with their grade level teams. These are as well organized around those central global themes, exploring to a deeper level of knowledge what it means to be an internationally minded student. Put together across all grade levels, they create a matrix because the same themes are explored in every year of the program to a deeper level. And this matrix is proudly displayed in our foyer, so you can stop by and visit any time and see how we've been upgrading it and changing it as we develop more of the program. So as we write and teach and reflect on these units, the unit takes a central place in the classroom environment. The language of the unit is shared with the student, and the students play a central role in developing the unit. At the core of every unit is inquiry. So this is a shift in our instructional practices, and we're asking students to take responsibility and play an active role in driving the direction of their own learning through their own questions, their own experimentation, and their own research. This is an example of student questions that were researched, and this is at the 1st grade level. So this is a shift in teaching and learning across all grade levels, and we're asking them from a very young age to really explore what it means to inquire, encouraging questions, and encouraging them to take responsibility for their own learning. So as the classroom becomes more student-centered and the teacher steps back and allows students to explore, the teacher allows the inquiry to develop based on the ideas of the student. So this was season-appropriate exploration of pumpkins in one of our kindergarten classes. Students develop the question, come up with their hypothesis, and then put together the experiment. So there's student inquiry in action. And you can see the pumpkin growing inside of the pumpkin. And it's still there, so if you stop by, this is probably about 2 weeks ago, so it looks even better today. So as students grow and move throughout the program, they're expected to take on increasingly more responsibility as inquiry shifts from a guided inquiry to more open inquiry, where groups of students are asked to monitor their own questioning and research responsibilities. And so this is one of our 5th grade classrooms. This involves many of the same provocations, many of the same tools that our teachers are already familiar with, but these are no longer supplemental tools. These take a central role in students learning the skills that they need to be able to learn, to continue to be learners throughout their lives. And students take a more direct role. Here's another example of teaching explicitly to our students what it means to become lifelong learners, helping them understand how to become inquirers, giving them prompts and support and scaffolding to do so. In our middle years program, or middle school, program with our 6th through 8th graders, this involves increasingly more independent and collaborative work. Students in groups using multiple sources of information to find what they need to answer the questions that they've come up with. This is one of our 6th grade classrooms. In our 7th and 8th grade, as students work independently and are asked to share their answers with the group, this is a Socratic seminar, using, again, the deeper levels of knowledge, Bloom's taxonomy, prompting questions, and guided by and really controlled by the students in the classroom. So as the IB philosophy has transformed our school, there have been a number of shifts in the culture of our school, and this is one of them, really asking all of our staff, our students, even bringing it to our parent groups, to come up with essential agreements to the norms of the school, as you will, to create a shared or common language across all 9 grade levels of students. Here are some more essential agreements. Nope. You can come on up. So a little bit more about our units of inquiry. I asked Sarah Montano to come up and speak a little bit about the benefits of using units.
So what you see here is an activity that we've done in first grade in previous years. But this year, it actually, instead of just being an activity for the children, can you just go to the next one? To draw themselves and then decorate a quilt square and put that together, we actually linked it to our unit of who we are. So can you go backwards? Sorry. Like the patches on a quilt, each of us is unique, and together we are beautiful. So that was a nice theme. And then a grandparent who helps in my class came in and said, "May I please take a picture of that? I'm a quilter, and I love what that looks like." And I said, "Sure." Then she said, "Would you like me to make a quilt with your class?" And I said, "Sure." So this next one, she actually, I said, "How about blue and white?" Because that's our colors. And she actually cut the strips, and she had her sewing machine that she brought in, had the kids follow the pattern of which of the pieces to sew together. They actually sewed it on the sewing machine. Then they used a little light box to draw themselves onto the fabric and color themselves. And she set that. And on the back, she had me take a picture just of the basic part, not the outside. And she actually put that saying on the back. You know, the one that you saw before? She put that saying on the back with the picture, and this will be one of the silent auction items that we have available at our boutique, holiday boutique. So
On December 13th.
December 13th, yes. So it's just a way to show how we were able to take some of the things that we do and really bring that into a larger spectrum and keep the focus for all the things that we did for who we are. And the kids really enjoyed that. So
Thank you. This also speaks to one of the other benefits that we found with this program is increased opportunities to bring in our community members, our family members, into the learning environment. I'm also going to ask another teacher, Bobby Burns, one of our kindergarten teachers, to come up and share a little bit more about units, but I'll speak first about what's up here. This is a summative assessment piece, so as part of every unit there's a central idea, which is kind of the big picture, which doesn't necessarily have to do with all of the content-specific facts and knowledge, if you were, but more of developing that conceptual understanding, the skills, the application. So this was a particularly powerful summative assessment piece that was created by our first grade and our K2 SDC class. And so students were asked to work in teams. And in speaking to our SDC teacher at that grade level, she expressed how this was not only an opportunity to use the same assessment piece as the mainstream classrooms, but also gave her a chance to work with her students where they were collaborating over content, in addition to the collaboration over social skills, emotional skills, and the physical skills, that they were giving those students, in a risk-taking way, a new responsibility.
Each of the units has learner profile traits that we focus on for each one of them. Our unit was who we are, and we were talking about what it looks like to be a good citizen at Joe Mitchell School. So 2 of the learner profile traits that we focused on were caring and principled, and to have kindergartners talk about, I am helpful and think about others, and I follow the rules, it takes on a very interesting twist to things. So each of them created a page as to what it meant to be caring and what it meant to be principled. So The pages start with, I am principled when and one of my students wrote, walk on the red top. So these are the kinds of things. So it starts out very simple but very powerful in kindergarten. And so these were pieces that we worked on, and at the end of the year they'll have all 10 of these profile traits, and they'll have a book that they can take home with them at the end of the year that shows what it looked like to be each of those profile traits. Then as our summative assessment, like Amy was talking about, we've created a rubric of what it looks like to be a good citizen in room K1. And the rubric starts with a 4 and then 3, 2, and a 1. Our 4 meant that we did these things all the time. We were reflective, we were principled, we were caring, and we followed the Mitchell way. And they kind of gave some ideas of that one. To get a 3, it was, we did it most of the time. To get a 2, it was some of the time. And this is my favorite. When it was a 1, it was a yikes, but you can fix it. So they didn't look at it as a day ender. It was a way to fix it. So we do this assessment at the end of each of the day so they can kind of keep that close to them. So it was a lot of fun, and they still call me on it if I forget to do the rubric. So it was powerful for them.
As Bobby mentioned, another part of the cultural shift that we're going through is integrating what the IB refers to as the learner profile, which is really about our student learning expectations. So through their coursework, an emphasis is placed on the development of certain traits and attributes, which, when taken in sum, attempt to describe what an internationally minded student and person would look like. And so this is what we strive to be, and also strive for our students to learn and to develop over their years in the program. And it starts to come out in our learning in various ways, but I'll let Ashley Furlong, our Title I teacher, tell you a little bit more.
So one example of how they're transferring this not only within their classroom but within the school as a whole, I had my second graders when we happened to be reading about Harriet Tubman and Martin Luther King Jr. And after we finished reading about Harriet Tubman, I took them over to the learner profile wall and I said, well, how would you describe her? And they immediately gravitated toward risk taker or courageous, and were not only able to tell me that she was that, but able to describe that she was that because she took on a very courageous role in saving these people.
If I could interrupt for 1 second, if you could speak more directly into the mic, it's really hard to hear.
Okay, I'm sorry. So they were able to not only tell me why she was that certain profile trait, she was a risk taker, but they were able to transfer the knowledge to explain, use the text that we read to explain what she had done that made her that courageous risk taker. So not only within their classrooms confined to this one wall, but they're taking it outside and seeing those traits.
So these learner profile traits have become our Student of the Month traits, and we're recognizing students for each month when they exhibit those traits. Students are asked to reflect on their own development in the learner profile, and teachers also make note and can post on the wall when they see their students developing, being reflective, being open-minded, being balanced. At the younger grades, this is explicit development. We really talk to them about what it means to be caring and show them and help them see what it means to be caring. And as they grow through the program, starting to ask them to take on more of a role of tying those traits into the curriculum, pulling the traits out of the curriculum. And again, as Ashley said, making those links to characters that they learn about or historical figures that they study, or even, again, in their own behavior. As we get to the upper grades, this has been a perfect opportunity for us to integrate the district goals towards the Common Core as we start to look for evidence-based conversations and writing. So this is an example of looking for caring in the story of Corduroy in second grade. And so pulling out evidence from the story with references to page number of where they see the characters being caring. And this continues to develop as the students grow through the program. And in 4th grade with Island of the Blue Dolphins. The cultural shift also again allows us to find more connections to the students' lives outside of the classrooms, and we've asked for their parents to also give us feedback on the development of their growth in the program. And so this is an opportunity for parents to give us feedback of when they see their students exhibiting these traits at home. So these were for caring, and so parents could send notes back to school asking or telling stories of when they saw their students develop these traits.
Well, one of the blessings of this program is that the central elements are well matched with the Common Core, and especially the emphasis on career and college readiness, but it goes beyond that because it helps create habits of being an inquirer and reflecting and effective communicators and having this open-mindedness and respect, and especially the caring for others, because we know that corporations and all of us in general would like to see adults that are caring and open-minded and thinking of the world in general. This is in my class, and what we're doing here is using the Common Core to show the multiple methods. And so as part of the IB also is having a variety of strategies to solve the problem so that they can reflect and decide in the end which is the best method for them. And this is another tie to that from our 2nd grade. And so what we're doing here is tying in the work that's been with Phil and Drew. And also then what will come after this is they are moving on to writing paragraphs describing how their favorite solution works. And it has to be written in a way so that, along with Common Core and IB, that you can follow the problem. So for instance, today I had them read their paragraphs to me, and I would write everything they did exactly, and that's when they would say, oh, wait, you didn't do what I did. Well, you didn't write what you did exactly. So it's a great reflection on the learning. Now, this is a 1st grader who is using the Common Core strategies also, in that he is building a 3D model and adding another 3D model to it. And then this is in my class where I was trying to also use some of the IB and Common Core strategies of having the students use evidence to support their opinions. And this was in a math problem where she was explaining to us why her answer was correct, but not only why it was correct, but how she got there. And she had questions from the group and then needed help from the group. And so it was a wonderful way that they were respectful to each other in their opinions as they were sharing.
So our last piece of instructional and cultural shift that has already been taking place on campus is our emphasis on internationalism, which is a big part of the program. We are preparing our students to contribute and thrive with 21st century skills, and that means a strong emphasis on the necessary attributes to work in a global context. The international emphasis ties in with our movement to Common Core and the next generation science standards, including here the weather and climate and earth and space science standards for 2nd grade. It's also given us an opportunity to look outside of the box at what global celebrations and what international multicultural events take place. So our students here are celebrating UN Day with some enrichment flag painting that was enjoyed by our TK all the way through our 8th graders, surprisingly, and apparently we have to do it again. We put out a multicultural survey that really just asked where our families were from, and we found out that they come from over 28 different countries around the world. So we're trying to find ways to recognize that in our school community. We're striving to tie the IB in to everything that we do, really. So there was an example last week where we had a guest speaker for our middle school students, our 6th through 8th grade students. And as part of that, students were able to learn a little bit about international foods during the presentation. In an effort to make sure that this international emphasis is authentic, we've actually asked this week for all of our teachers, or we've invited them to find ways to tie internationalism into their classroom content and curriculum. So teachers have really taken off with it. We have guest speakers, geography bee events, content learning experiences. This is an example from our 2nd grade classroom as they're researching countries for a global community service project that they're going to participate in. Our 1st graders collaborating over writing a story in response to Roosters Off to See the World, where they write their own story about what they'll need to be prepared to go off and see the world. And a guest speaker in one of our 3rd grade classrooms, one of our parents who shared her stories being from Albania. We have some larger programmatic changes with the inclusion of Spanish, TK through 8th grade. So here are students studying Spanish in one of our 5th grade classrooms. As our school grows, we're looking for new, inventive ways to find room for all of our students. This is one of our 8th grade PE classes, sharing space. You can't see them because they're off camera, but with our elementary school PE classes. And so as part of that growth, we are also pleased to be able to see the changes on campus with the science classroom that is already starting to appear on our campus. And so it was nice to be able to come tonight and to say thank you in person for the changes that are occurring there. And so these photos were taken on Monday. You get to see inside of the classroom.
So as you can see, we're making incredible progress, and there's lots of changes taking place at Joe Mitchell School. We have our eye on the prize, IB authorization, but we still have lots of work to do. So our next steps, we will continue to work collaboratively and develop and create those IB units of inquiry. We've completed our Category 1 level of professional development, which really provided the foundation and philosophy of IB, and now we're planning for the Category 2 level, which we would hope to learn more now about developing criterion-based assessments and developing inquiry-based lessons. We're scheduling an open house for the community to come see what it's like to be an IB student at Joe Mitchell, January 22nd. Mark your calendars. And then in October 2014, we plan to submit the Part B application, which is followed by a school visit to determine authorization as an IB World School in the spring of 2015. So on behalf of the staff, students, and our school community, I want to say thank you for believing in our ability to create a destination school for our community at Joe Mitchell. We invite you to come and visit. I have to tell you that each and every day that I come to work, I am grateful that I made the choice to come to Livermore Valley Joint Unified School District. And I couldn't be more proud of the work that we've done so far. So thank you.
We have questions from board members. Mrs. Runyon?
So maybe you could talk a little bit about if someone saw this presentation tonight and was interested in enrolling a student. Are there spaces? Is there a waiting list? What do people do if they'd like to go to an IB school?
I would suggest that they call 606-4738 and schedule an opportunity to come see our school. I'm happy to give school tours, and absolutely, we are welcoming all students.
Other questions? Or I did like that you are covering the citizenship kinds of activities in conjunction with the actual lessons. I think that's very helpful, and we can't have too much good citizenship, I think, so. But that looked very nice.
And I'm wondering if we could go a little bit out of order and change the agenda. The folks here in the audience, such support, and many of them spoke, but some of them didn't. They were speaking on behalf of their colleagues. But this work is incredible work, and they speak of it beautifully. But I was just hoping we could have an opportunity to have them come around and shake their hands and individually thank them. They're thankful to us for more work. And so, but I mean, I think we've given them the opportunity and kind of planted the seeds, but they are making it happen, and not every school would embrace that. And they have done it with such professionalism and enthusiasm that it is infectious. It's so exciting. So I don't know if that's okay with you, but I was hoping it would be.
Let's do one thing first. Are there any comments from the audience on this? And if not, then we'll welcome everyone up, and we'll be glad to shake all of your hands and congratulate you on excellent work.
And then we had Perel just in case.
Too much variation. Sorry.
He's talking to the PE teachers.
Oh, right. You all look like you're having fun. Oh, yeah. You know, hard work for fun. Oh, yeah. Signed up and try to do that. Watch it in action. Good to see you. We're having fun. Hard work, but sounds like they're participating, not just seeing the whole book. It's really different. Everybody's got their different card. You're all having too much fun.
So would you like to introduce the next item?
Certainly. So for our next item, I will ask Ms. Marianne Freitas to rejoin us at the podium, and she is going to give us a brief overview of programs and services with special ed, because this is special education. This is part one, so that implies a part two. And so if there is additional information that you would like on this topic, then we'll also take ideas and suggestions from the board.
Good evening, President Dunlop, trustees, and Superintendent Bowers. Thank you again for having me up here tonight. Before I start, though, I first want to thank you all for the incredibly warm welcome I've received coming to the district this year. It's been a little overwhelming. The kindness has been incredible. And as I've gotten out to the sites to see the classrooms, to meet with the teachers, to meet with the groups, the administrators, I have just been incredibly overwhelmed by the hardworking staff that we have, the effort people put in continually, and what they are seeking as we move forward. And on that note, before I start, I'd like to thank the people that have come here tonight to stay a little longer today. And that includes a few, and I'm going to ask them to stand. Our assistant director, a couple of our program specialists, as well as our adapted PE teachers who have stayed a little longer than they planned. So thank you very much for coming. So this is, as it was mentioned, really a brief overview of our department and really where we're hoping to go, and to return to you in the spring with more specifics. But as you know, we have programs at all of our schools. We have a total of about 1,682 students that we serve, and this is about 12% of our total populations that are special ed. We have services at all of our schools, and what many people forget is not only do we serve preschoolers to 22-year-olds, but we're actually working with infants. Those who are visually impaired and hard of hearing, we're starting to work with sometimes at 2 to 3 months as soon as they get a diagnosis. And that had come from the state several years ago because we're viewed as the specialists. People don't realize that we're going into the homes and really starting to orientate the families to the needs of these students so that when they get to us, they're really more well prepared. We, as I said, have programs everywhere, and we are serving not just the academic, but the social, emotional, and behavioral needs of our students. About 14% of our students are receiving speech-only services. 44% of our students are receiving what we say are their primary services are resource. They might be receiving other designated services, but their case managers are resource specialists. And another 42% are in special day classes or other specialized programs. And this is what I would say fairly typical if you were to go special ed department, district to district, of kind of the layout. So how we have groups is what I would say appropriate. Those who are qualifying in one of 13 disability areas, and where they're being placed is again related to their IEPs and the teams that are helping them. To help serve these students, we have a wide variety of services and professionals who are working with them. And these are just some of the areas, but you normally will hear of things like the psychologists and the speech and language therapists, adapted PE services, but we're also looking at things such as occupational therapy, physical therapy, if it is school-based and educationally needed and not medically needed. So there is a difference in the services that we're providing in regards to educational and medical. As we're looking forward and moving this year, we're looking at 3 primary areas that we're helping to try to develop our department. To provide specialized training to our staff, and not just the teachers, but to our specialists. To review the curriculum that we have in our programs throughout the district. And to review and analyze the services and programs that we utilize outside of our district. We want to help keep our staff current, not just with laws and educational codes, but with policies that help to govern the IEP process. It is forever changing. It's forever changing in what I do and what I am reading on a day-to-day basis. And so it's really up to us to really help educate those who are working with the students. Trainings have been provided this year already on compliance, least restrictive environment, and we brought in a new program, kind of a new program of sorts to help provide orientation to our new special ed teachers. Not just to help them with what's going on in the classroom, but with the IEPs. Because what we're finding, if we want to maintain these teachers, which we do, we need to really give them more that has been provided from outside the university programs. As we plan to move forward, we really want to develop a professional development plan with our staff. And so we're outlining that as we go this year, and we really want to have this structure. So as we go year to year, we're not having to start over and redevelop. And so that we know what the needs are and we can continue to maintain them. And maybe not have to do things year to year, but really have kind of a 3-year plan of sorts so that we can go back every year to do refreshers in certain areas. And again, not just for our teachers, but for our specialists and our support staff. We want to look at the curriculum that we're using largely because we're changing what we're doing for general ed students as well. So we're looking specifically this year at bringing teachers together to form committees, and this is special ed teachers, some general ed teachers, and some administrators together in small groups to look at the curriculum for our mild, moderate special day classes, for our moderate, severe programs, social skills, and our resource programs. We want to ensure that what we're doing overall really is connecting to the Common Core standards. so that we can stay in line with what is happening with general ed. And our third goal is we really want to look at what we are doing outside of the district and where our students are. We have at this time 25 students that are placed in non-public schools, not just in this county, but some outside of the county. We have 22 students who have been placed in programs in Pleasanton Unified School District, some in SELPA programs, some in non-SELPA programs, and 3 students in Dublin Unified. And we have 7 students who have been residentially placed. The reason this is something I consider important, as well as others within our department, is because I firmly believe that if we are serving students closer to home, we are providing them with a better education, because we can help to train our staff, we can help to provide the resources. We have the bigger base than many of these programs, and if we can do it internally, we're able to better provide for these students. But we need to develop that base, and we need to develop a continuum of it to do so. And I do firmly believe that if we put the right things in place and really analyze it, again, long-term, not just an immediate need, we could better develop it to serve the students, but also our district as well. So as we move forward, these are really the main focuses we're looking at that are helping to develop what we're doing with our staff currently and with the vision we have for the next couple of years. So thank you.
Mrs. Runyon, please.
Yeah, thank you. I'm excited to hear you talk about professional development, because I'm a big believer in that, and I think that we can all learn and grow in the work that we do. One of the things that really helped me as a parent of a special ed child was my daughter's very first special ed teacher. I remember her name to this day, Catherine Trengus Estrada, down in Torrance Unified School District, said some things to me that have stuck with me. She told me things like, you know, it's really helpful if you have a special ed student to either pick them up or drop them off. Even though you get free busing, you have so much more time to interact with your teacher. If you're picking them up, you're hearing things from the teacher about how your student did during the day. I never forgot that piece of advice, and I always did that. And I think that it would be really helpful not just to have professional development for teachers, but for parents. What do you expect as a parent out of the system? How can we help you best help your child grow and develop? And so I was excited. We've talked offline about some of that, and I know that you're doing some of that. And I look forward to hearing more about it, because it's not just teachers and students who have things to learn. If you've got a special ed child that's been recently identified, you're overwhelmed, and you need help of how to best utilize the resources available. So I look forward to hearing that, and I'm sure that's going to be in part 2 or 3 or 4 or whatever. We're going to get to that. But and I just want to thank all the special educators that are here. My daughter went through the system and came out the other end with tremendous skills, and I know it was dedicated professionals making that difference. And I really appreciate each and every one of you and what you do.
Thank you.
Other board members? Mr. Roby?
I was looking at the makeup, 12% of our total population. Is it still growing, or is it staying static, or?
It has stayed pretty static looking at the past few years. What has shifted is where some of the students are, but the overall population, even as the overall population of the district has gone up and down a little, the 12% has stayed pretty consistent.
Is that true throughout the state?
10 to 13% would be pretty typical. Several years ago, they were really holding at 10%, and I think it's, again, state and nationwide has stayed pretty stagnant, more probably to the 12 and 13%.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Other questions? Mrs. White?
If, as you study and think about whether we would bring more services within our district, what would happen to the SELPA?
Hopefully the SELPA would grow and develop. You know, first you have to look at the services SELPA-wide as to what is really specialized And I think what we're finding is that more of the individualized services, such as service providers, are more specialized. But what we're finding is that in the districts, all three of us, we have enough students internally to be able to provide programs for. And so I think the SELPA, as with many things, might shift a little in its focus, but the SELPA isn't going to go away and the needs aren't going to go away, but maybe shifting it a little.
Okay, I'll have to think about that one.
Yeah, but I think in some of the real specialized programs, it will always be there, because if you don't have enough of a population to have a continuum, it doesn't benefit the district.
But I thought you were saying that we could provide our own specialized programs.
For those that we have
completely.
enough of a population
Okay.
for, absolutely. Yeah.
Mr. McLaughlin?
This same argument took place 30 years ago, and it's getting a little better. And we got to work with the staff that we have on hand and make sure that you have the best staff in relationship to that student that you are working with. And believe in him and believe in yourself. Have a good job. Thank you for memorizing 30 years of work with special education. And you can see their faces. They're great. Thank you.
Thank you.
We very much appreciate your report, and that was very helpful for us to learn your view and where you think we should be going. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you all.
Are there questions from anyone in the audience? Okay, if not, let's move to the next item.
So thank you, Mr. President. Next, I'll ask Cindy Alba, our Assistant Superintendent of Educational Services. She'll provide a brief introduction to you prior to the opening of a public hearing.
Thank you, President Dunlop, trustees, Superintendent Bowers. So this evening, I am asking for a public hearing, and then I have a follow-up item. So this is kind of trying to do two things at once. Not very good at that. So this evening, what we are requesting is a public hearing tonight in order to request to the State Board of Education a general waiver for part of the education code. And last year we came to you also with this request for last year, Code 48352, the Open Enrollment Act. And we're asking, we want to go to the State Board for this waiver for Junction K School for the 2014-15 school year. So, and then after the public hearing, the school board can I need to not look at my slides. I'm sorry. I'm trying to flip slide, look at that at the same time. So what it is that we need to go to the state school board and ask the state school board for a waiver for this particular part of the ed code. And there is ed code that allows waiver from any part of the ed code. So the Open Enrollment Act is 48352, and this is that part in the ed code that identifies what they call the 1,000 lowest performing school. It was signed into law in 2010, and the Department of Education used a formula based on API to determine those schools. But within those requirements of identifying schools on the Open Enrollment Act, and again, Open Enrollment Act implies that for a school that is on this list, we need to allow parents to move their students to other schools in the district and outside the district. To be on the list, there are certain schools that are not required to be a part of this, and those schools include any school, any district can only have 10% of its schools on the list. So if you're a large urban district and you have many schools with lower APIs than what we have at Junction, and Junction's API right now is at 776, that district cannot have any more than 10% of its school. And an example would be, we do have a neighboring urban district that has 35 schools within its district that have lower APIs than our school, but they only have four schools on this open enrollment list. So it excludes certain schools from the list and identifying those lower performing schools. And then it also excludes all charter schools from being on the list. We would be asking the state board for a waiver for 1 year to exclude Junction from being on this list for the same reasons that we did last year when we came forward, is just the whole idea of what this open enrollment act really means, and that where it purports to identify our 1,000 lowest performing schools by the means of how they do it, it really doesn't. We've also been very proud of Junction for the gains that they've made. They were one of our few schools this year that, and even within the state where most schools were not making a lot of growth on API, they were able to make 11 points gain. So they've demonstrated ongoing academic growth. They've, as I said, their API increased. We generally have about the same number, even without the Open Enrollment Act. Our district is an open enrollment district. We allow students to transfer in and out of our schools. Junction typically has had the same number, pretty equal number of transfers in and out of the school. I know this year there were 71 transfers in. I don't have the exact number out of the school, but just by that, it kind of implies that people are wanting to go to school for Junction for the programs that they're offering there. That we honor all of our requests for transfers and a space available option. So this really doesn't even give our students, it doesn't even add anything for our students. The period of the request for the waiver would be for July 1st, 2014 to June 30th, 2015. And so we'd ask to open a public hearing.
Okay, so we'll open the public hearing. Anyone like to comment on this proposal? We'll have board members in a minute. Right now it's the public hearing, and so I don't see anyone who wants to speak on this, so we'll close the public hearing, and then we'll move to the next item, which is for our board consideration.
So the next item is approval of the general waiver of Ed Code 33050. And so we are already giving you the background information, so we are asking that the board approve the submission of general waiver 33050 on behalf of Junction K School to the State Board of Education.
We're going to have board member comments first. So any board member comments on this, please? Mr. Rogan,
I've got a
please.
question. Since we're an open enrollment district and basically moving this off asking for this waiver would take us off the Open Enrollment Act. Well, what's the point? I mean, is it take a mark off our take the school out of that particular?
Right. It takes the school off of a list that is published that says that it's one of the 1,000 lowest performing schools.
And it's a misleading list because it actually isn't one of the lowest per 1,000 schools, as Assistant Superintendent was said. It actually, there are many lower performing schools. It's very close to the 800 mark, but it's because of the formula that was used to identify these schools. It's actually misleading. And then even if it were misleading, the reason and the rationale behind the act was to free up parents from being trapped in a school where they didn't want to be. So, but that also doesn't even exist for us because we don't require anyone because of their residence or pre-registration to stay at a school. We have open enrollment. So there really is no advantage to parents, and it is only kind of a negative stigma that is misleading. So that's why we see it as being.
We're asking to get off a list because of a poor formula, and it just was, and we don't. I mean, I agree with it. I just want to clarify what it actually achieved.
Mrs. Runyon.
I think it's disingenuous. You know, I'm a pretty plain-spoken person, and when you say that I'm going to put a school on a list of the 1,000 lowest performing schools, and then you're going to say that, except I'm not going to let any district have more than 10%, that right there, you're just not telling the truth. And I think fundamentally there are two bottom lines here. It's not truthful that it's one of the 1,000 lowest performing schools, and two, we already have open enrollment for the entire district. And I don't know the current status, but at times we have had a waiting list at Junction for people who want to go to the dual immersion Spanish-English program. So it's moot and it's disingenuous. And I am wholly in support of the waiver, and I believe we've gotten it before. Is that correct?
We did receive it.
And because the people at the state also understand that it's not an accurate reflection of the achievement of that school.
Any other comments? In that case, we'll entertain a motion.
I'd be happy to make a motion.
Oh.
I'm already good.
Yes,
Yeah, Tom's going to make a motion.
Earlier, but
Out of order.
I move we approve the waiver with 33050.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, that's unanimous. We'll move on to the next item.
Thank you. I'll ask Mrs. Amy Robbins to join us at the podium. She's going to be introducing an item to you, which is the consideration and possible approval of the next generation science standards.
Good evening, President Dunlop, Superintendent Bowers, and members of the board. Tonight I bring before you the Next Generation Science Standards, and I look forward to sharing information about the standards, how they were created, the state's adoption process, and how we will move forward as a district. So a little background about our California science standards. The last science standards were adopted by the state in October of 1998. Since then, the Next Generation Science Standards were created and have been approved by the State Board of Education on September 4th, with more discussion occurring around the middle school learning progressions, and those were approved by the board in November. The state has appointed a panel of science experts that are currently looking at the middle year progression, and they're going to provide specific instruction for each of the middle school years as far as what the science content program will look like in the middle year program. So why new science standards? What drove the creation of these science standards? Like the Common Core state standards, the need for new science standards was driven by the goal for preparing all students for success in college and careers. The new science standards were designed to showcase the science, engineering, and technology that influenced and continues to influence cultural achievements, modern life, and participation in public policy and good decision making. These needs were shared across the nation. The publication of the Next Generation Science Standards was a two-step process, beginning with the framework for K-12 science education. The creation of the framework was motivated in part by a growing national consensus around the need for a greater coherence and a sense of unity in K-12 education. A team of 18 scientists, researchers, and experts formed a team to create and publish the framework. The framework was designed to develop students' understanding of practices of science and engineering, which is important to understanding science as the knowledge of its content. From there, the second step of the process was coordinated by the Achieve, a group of governors and corporate leaders who led the process to gather partners from 26 states, with California being one of the lead states, who organized a group of stakeholders from K-12 education and institutions of higher education to use the framework as a guide and create the Next Generation Science Standards. So looking at the framework and the goals of the framework's goals were to move science education towards a more coherent vision in three ways: to build on the ideas of learning as a developmental progression, the expectations that students engage in scientific investigation and argumentation to achieve deeper understanding of core science ideas, and emphasizes that learning science and engineering involves integration of knowledge of scientific explanation and the practices needed to engage in scientific inquiry and engineering design. The framework goes hand in hand with the Common Core state standards. It has students being more engaged in the learning, exploring, as we heard from the IB presentation, really looking at the inquiry-based learning to provide students with the skills and the content needed to be successful. The structure of the framework, which is also the structure within the Next Generation Science Standards, there are three dimensions within the science standards, and these dimensions are repeated throughout, making the Next Generation Science Standards an easy document to navigate for most. The three dimensions include scientific and engineering practices, So similar to the Common Core state standards for mathematics, where we have the mathematical practices, and the Next Generation Science Standards, we have scientific and engineering practices. Dimension 2 is a cross-cutting of concepts, and Dimension 3 is the disciplinary core ideas, and we'll explore those further. So looking at the scientific and engineering practices, these are skills that students need to be able to do not only in K-12, but in order to be successful in college and careers. Students are asking questions and defining problems. They're developing and using models. They're planning and carrying out investigation. They're analyzing and interpreting data, using mathematics and computational thinking. They're developing explanations and designing solutions. They're engaging in argument from evidence, and they're obtaining, evaluating, and communicating around information. As you notice, a few of those really point out to me are, I look at number 7, engaging in argument from evidence. When we look at the district and our Common Core focus for this year, when we have building academic vocabulary, having students engage in evidence-based conversations, and having students engage in evidence-based writing, there are some common themes in the scientific and engineering practices that definitely support us in our work as we move forward with the Common Core in areas of literacy and mathematics. Our cross-cutting concepts, they apply across the domain of science. And again, you'll see several skills and themes throughout here. So looking for patterns, similarities, and diversity, the relationship between cause and effect, scale, proportion, and quantity, systems and system models, energy and matter, structure and function, and stability and change. So looking at these concepts and how they apply across the varying science domains. And lastly, the disciplinary core ideas, looking at physical science, life science, earth and space science. And then this one is an emphasized one that may be new to us, engineering, technology, and applications of science. So our science teachers have already started looking at the Next Generation Science Standards. They're very eager to jump in with both feet, yet they are seeing that engineering and technology and the application, that's a piece that we need to look at our current curriculum and make sure that we're meeting our students' needs across the core discipline areas. So using the framework, the Next Generation Science Standards were created as a collaborative effort. There were 41 members from education to science and various industries. The standards, when you look at them, they are coherent across the grade level, similar format to our Common Core State Standards for literacy. The Next Generation Science Standards provide all students access to challenging science education. They're based, as I mentioned, on the framework. They integrate the 3 dimensions, the scientific and engineering practices, the cross-cutting concepts, and the disciplinary core. And they were completed as a document in April of 2013. And as I mentioned, the state adopted the Next Generation Science Standards in October of 2013. Also not on the list, but very clearly, if you've had time to explore the document, you can see reference to the Common Core Literacy Standards and the Common Core Mathematics Standards integrated throughout the Next Generation Science Standards. So I have a short video from 2 professionals and their viewpoint as far as what shifts we will see with the implementation of the Next Generation Science Standards.
What makes this different? What makes these standards different?
Okay, I'll try one answer. I think there are many answers. I think both Common Core and Next Generation Science Standards embody a shift in the way a classroom works, away from teacher as information giver and towards students as learners working together, discourse among students in the classroom coming up, and teacher talk going down. That's a huge change, particularly from what we've been doing these last few years. And having that change happen across all subject areas, so it's a change of school culture and not just in one subject area, is really, really important.
Well, and I think also, as you kind of think about where we are today, you can go on your portable whatever, and you can punch in the question you want, as we were seeing in the video this morning, and there's the answer. It's not about today and for our kids' future. Remember, we're trying to get kids to be prepared for the future. And it's not about just knowing the information. It's about what you do with it. And so what is so exciting and unique about the NGSS standards, and about Common Core, and about the English, the ELA, and the math, it's really trying to get kids to think about what's the information I have, and now what do I do with it? And then when you start looking at the NGSS and you have the cross-cutting concepts, think about, when they sent Curiosity to Mars, what were they looking for? They're looking for biological evidence, but they're also looking for what else do we see that we can understand. And so one of the pictures that David was showing me the other day, he was showing me a picture of a riverbed that has no water in it. And he says, what do you see? And you see round pebbles, and you see layers, you see all kinds of stuff. And he says, so where do you think this picture is? Well, it was obviously in Mars. And yet, I knew that it was a riverbed because of the patterns that I had seen here on the Earth. And so that's what we have to do. We have to get our kids to be to have the curiosity to go forward, but we've got to give them the tools. And that's the practices, and then it's also those cross-cutting themes, because you need something to hang your hat on. When you don't know what's going on, you have to start looking for something that you do know about. And that's what those cross-cutting themes really do for you.
So to somewhat reiterate what the two professionals said, for science education, the goals, according to those who wrote the framework and the National Next Generation Science Standards, all students need to understand that science is not just a body of knowledge that reflects current understandings of the world. It is also a set of practices used to establish, extend, and refine that knowledge. Both the elements of knowledge and practice are essential. And that we value and use science as a process of obtaining knowledge based upon observational evidence. And it's very exciting to me that this presentation came after the IB, and watching many of these threads and skills and requirements that are present in the Next Generation Science Standards happening throughout different content areas at IB based on the needs of our International Baccalaureate program. And having been through other classrooms throughout the district, there's a lot of things that we're already doing with the literacy and the math standards with Common Core to see how these fold together with the Next Generation Science Standards. It's very exciting. So as we look forward, we know that the state superintendent has appointed a strategic leadership team to develop a plan for the implementation of the Next Generation Science Standards. The plan will include a timeline for implementation, adoption of the science framework, developing assessments, and outlining strategic plans and strategies for districts. Once the plan is complete, we will follow that plan after it's adopted by the state board. But in the meantime, many of our teachers, as I mentioned, have already begun exploring the Next Generation Science Standards. I know our science specialists spent a lot of time at the beginning of the year looking at the scientific and engineering practices and their role, their current role, and have already began integrating many of those practices into what they are doing. And I know our secondary science teachers as well are eagerly awaiting some of the direction as far as what it will specifically look like for our middle school, for 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, and then how it all transfers and transforms our curriculum as we go throughout the grade levels. So at this time, this concludes my presentation. I'm asking that we fulfill the superintendent's recommendation to adopt the Next Generation Science Standards.
Okay. Do we have comments, questions from board members? Mrs. White?
Yes, sir. When I learned science, they always said that science was what scientists do. And as I've done science and thought about science, I think it's more science is how scientists think. And it's just a different approach to life. It's not that it's more questioning or more picky, it's just different. You didn't talk very much about the discussion surrounding the middle school spiral scheme for presenting science. And I think it's just wonderful. No more will middle school students learn life science one year, physical science another year. It will be all integrated in a spiral form. And you'll learn a little bit about biology, and then you'll learn the chemistry that you need to support that biology, and then you'll learn more in-depth biology, and then the physics that goes along with the chemistry. And I think the life is integrated. Science should be integrated too. And I remember a lecture I heard once about integrated science, and her comment was that it's a historical artifact. that biology, physics, and chemistry are separated, because as they were coming up with the high school curriculum as we know it for the last 100+ years, there was a committee of 10, and there were 5 folks from universities and 5 folks from secondary schools. And so the universities were trying to influence what sort of product the secondary schools would send them. And of course, the universities were organized in a chemistry department, a physics department, a biology department, an astronomy department. So they thought in terms of those sorts of issues, where the math folks thought math. There's not a department of algebra or a department of calculus or a department of geometry or logic. So, and if you'll notice, the math that we teach these days is different from the math that I learned. I mean, it's the same math, but the structure is different. You learn things in different orders. And number sense is actually stated as a thread to learn, rather than the way some of us more mature people learned it with, you just happened upon irrational numbers and that was interesting. You know, you didn't dwell on the fact that they were irrational. Anyhow, I think that is really, really great that we're going to have science that builds on each other, so that all 8th grade students will graduate and go to high school with an integrated approach to observing the real world.
Other comments? Mrs. Runyon?
I think I'm excited about this, number one. And number two, as I talk to members of the public, I think every once in a while I get concern expressed when we talk about the new science standards and Common Core and things like that, that when we say that you're not going to have to memorize things, it's not that you're not going to have to memorize anything. It's just that the emphasis is not going to be as much on rote memorization and recall. But, for example, in math, you're still going to have to know your times tables, because you're going to be unable to do algebra if you don't understand the relationships in a polynomial. And so memorization will still be part of school probably forever. But the emphasis is going to be on the application of information that you either have memorized or can readily look up. And I think that this is very exciting. I know that the Rotarians this weekend were over at Junction doing water bottle rockets and having a blast with that. I unfortunately was unable to attend, but I got the pictures. And my goodness, did they have a lot of fun. And in order to do something like that, you need to have some scientific principles. You have to understand why, when you pump air into a bottle filled with some water on a stem, that you release that and it's going to shoot up. There's a lot of science involved in that, and applying it makes it more engaging for the students. And I'm excited about it. I'm excited that students are going to have more opportunities to go in depth with what they're being taught and apply it and question it and think about what the next great challenges will be, because that's what we're really trying to do. So I'd be happy to move for approval of the next generation science standard.
Do we have any other comments first? Mr. Rogie, any comments? Mr. McLaughlin? I have a few. How is this different than Project Lead the Way?
Is that a loaded question? So with Project Lead the Way, it is an integration of the science, technology, engineering, and math, and that's an elective that we offer at 2 of our middle schools currently, and as well at the Green Engineering Academy. Many of these scientific and engineering practices are in place currently when you go into the classroom and you watch students be engaged and challenged and really do exactly what you said, Trustee Runyon, really apply what they're learning. And so there may not be differences in all classrooms, although now there are standards on which that we enhance and expand our curriculum.
Yeah, I was really impressed when I spent about a half hour in Ms. Brinker's class at Christensen. But not so much what they were doing, it's just that I wanted to play with all of the stuff they had in there. And I'm sure kids going, it's the same thing, that, you know, you say, you could get excited about trying to make a little robot, making a, something that proves that gravity really works or things like that. So, the principle really here is to get kids involved in science. And I think, I would hate for us to lose that, but I read this and I said, what's the difference between Project Lead the Way? And I think we just have a very good head start on the program. Because I would like to think that that was a very good choice for us to move that direction and is kind of very consistent with this. So with that, you want to make a motion then, Mrs. Wright?
Sure. I'd be happy to make a motion to approve the Next Generation Science Standard.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion, a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any contrary? None, so it's unanimous. So we're ready for the next item.
Thank you. For our next item, we will ask Mr. Scott Vernoy, our Director of Student Services, to join us. He is going to be bringing to your attention a first reading of a potential revision to an existing policy.
Good evening, Dr. Dunlop, trustees, Superintendent Bowers. Tonight, I bring to you a board policy from Series 3000. It was first posted last week, and I bring to you tonight for a first reading. It is Board Policy 3513.3. It's Tobacco-Free Schools Policy. It's being revised, the policy and the administrative regulations. The tobacco-free policy and regulation recognizes that health hazards associated with smoking, the use of tobacco products, and the desire to provide a healthy environment for students and staff. This policy is being revised to adjust to current trends and increased incidents that we are seeing on our campuses and throughout the United States and California. The significant changes include it prohibits the use of products containing tobacco or nicotine, including but not limited to smokeless tobacco, snuff, chew, clove cigarettes, and electronic hookahs and other vapor-emitting devices with or without nicotine content that mimic the use of tobacco products. This also includes e-cigarettes, and we have had some comments that we add e-cigarettes into this, that we can speak to that. We ask that you approve this first reading of the proposed revised policies and admin regulations from Series 3000. We also received two other comments to capitalize district in the policy and also change of to an or, which are both correct, so we will be making those as well. At this time, I would take any other comments or questions that you might have.
Okay, board comments? No comments? Any public comments? I have a question for you.
Yes.
Do we have any people who are under our employment anymore that actually do smoke? Because this would require them to leave the school grounds to do that.
Yes.
And we may want them to do that. I just wondered if we have that implication.
Yes, we do. I'm sure we do. I have not taken a poll or anything, but just the societal averages that we would have people that still smoke. It is prohibited on any of our campuses or any of our vehicles as well.
Or any of our activities. So if they are on a field trip with our students or chaperoning, they're not to be smoking on those trips. So when they're in any capacity working for our school district. And we also provide support. I know our Director of Human Resources, Yolanda Holmes, has connected people because it's actually also a health issue. And it's something that we would want the lives of our employees to be more healthful and that have them make better decisions, similar to what our student board rep was talking about the students were doing with their tobacco-free education program. And so we also, Mrs. Holmes will connect any staff who is struggling with with smoking cessation to either resources, and we have an EAP, Employee Assistance Program, and that's specifically on there.
Yes.
So there's a lot of emphasis now on preventing ever starting or stopping. But I would say that because most of our folks spend so much time at work, to keep up with a habit like that, which is pretty addicting, it's definitely diminished because you can't do it in any capacity in the workplace.
Yeah, what about chaperones on field trips? No, not allowed, right? And so we
Not
would
allowed,
want to
no.
make sure that people are aware of that.
Yep.
So this basically prohibits smoking anywhere on school grounds, school activities, and so on. So the question, football games?
Yes, it's not allowed
Not allowed, okay.
at the football games as well, and it's been like that. That hasn't been a change in this.
Okay. Any other questions? Do we
I'd
have
be
any
happy to
public
move
comment?
that we accept these regulations, Series 3000, for first reading.
We have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay,
Thank you
that's
very much.
unanimous. Thank you.
If I might, Dr. Dunlop, since we've arrived at consent and I was not at the prior meeting due to illness, if we could vote separately on A?
On which one?
A.
A? Okay.
So I'd be happy to move items B through F.
Okay. So we have a motion for the consent items for items B through F. Any comments from public or board members on that? Do I have a second? Okay, we've got a motion. We were beaten out on this one. We have a motion by Mr. Rogie on that. So with that, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so item A, do we have a motion on item A?
I move we approve the minutes of the last board meeting.
I second.
And a second. All those who are prepared to approve the minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, and we have one abstention. And no opposed. Right. Okay, so let's move on to the resolutions.
I'd be happy to move the resolutions A through E.
Okay, do we have any questions or comments on these? Now, we're authorizing signature authority, and we do this every year, if I remember right. And the last one is for us board members to provide you a signature card, which you will then use anywhere you want to go shopping. Is that way it works? No, so that will be a signature card associated with our board positions. And I think you escaped this, that you don't end up with a signature card, but don't be offended by that. Okay, so we have a motion on consent items for resolutions A through E. Do we have a second for them?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. And this is for a roll call vote, so Mrs. White, please.
Ms. Dreyer?
Aye.
Ms. Schultz?
Aye.
Mrs. Runyon?
Aye.
Mr. Rogie?
Aye.
Mr. McLaughlin? Mrs. White? Aye. Dr. Dunlop?
Aye. Okay, that was also unanimous. So now we'll move on to board member reports and requests. So would anyone like to propose to go first?
I'll go first.
And would our student board members like to comment at this time on anything that happened in the meeting today? Or you're happy? Okay. Okay, Mrs. White.
Last week, must have been Wednesday, I attended the FFA dinner at Livermore High, in which they welcomed the newbies, the freshmen, the green hands in the FFA. And I recall one time I was in the Indianapolis airport at first week in April or so, and the place was a sea of these blue corduroy jackets. I mean, swarms of FFA members were there because the national convention was in Indianapolis. And I've learned that it rotates every little bit. And you know, it was such a delightful experience because there were all these teenagers who were making a lie out of all the descriptions we have of how unruly teenagers are. And I appreciate that being well-behaved is not the goal of FFA, but if you are well-behaved, it gets you so much farther. You don't have to deal with the distractions of behavior issues while you're getting ahead in life. This morning I attended a Roadrunner meeting at Maryland Avenue School. This was the first Roadrunner meeting of the year. The Roadrunner project is a gathering of all the support people who assist Maryland in serving the needs of their students. And one of the fourth grade teachers came asking for help because he would like to reinstitute a field trip that the fourth graders take to Malakoff Diggings. And there's a whole program up at the diggings, and they go and spend a couple of nights. And it's just an opportunity to not only get steeped in California gold rush culture, but as we talk more about it, it's the fourth grade curriculum. And in our discussion of science, it's all about earth science and gold and where it is and how they did the hydraulic mining, and you know, that would be an earth science category too. And there were some ideas. Lots of people came up with ideas for grants that he might get to get that started. Again, I guess it lapsed after a couple of years. The district has also started a dual immersion task force for, it's a bit to learn what is happening in the district in the way of dual immersion, in the way of support for Hispanic families, in the way of how English is taught to Hispanic students throughout the district. And one of the issues that was raised is what will happen when the dual immersion students from Junction Avenue leave grade 8. What sort of placement will they get at the high school? Will there be a test? Will there be just an automatic? We'll just have to see, and that's part of what the charge of this task force is. And on my last comment, in one of my walks, I think it was yesterday, I was walking past East Avenue, and this was as the students were coming to school, and there was this young man, and he had his backpack on, but he also had a shirt and a tie on. And I said, "Is it dress-up day?" And he says, "No." I says, "Oh." He says, "I'm on the basketball team, and it's game day." And he stood up proud, and it was just a delight to see the change in his attitude as he says, "I'm on the basketball team, and it's game day." That's all.
Mr. McLaughlin, would you like to comment?
I also went to the Maryland Avenue School and watched the kids with all the enthusiasm that they made us that they were happy with what they were doing, and that program is going to be a great program and a great school.
Mr. Rogie?
Well, I did go to the race to the flagpole. I was not a participant. I'm more of a spectator. Long distance stuff like that. Got to see our superintendent run and various other people. It was pretty exciting. A lot of people showed up. Great day to race. My wife and daughter, although they weren't racing, but they did complete the course. So it was very exciting to see everybody. Good turnout, and I hope we have a bigger one next year. Yeah, the flagpole is pretty nice too, I gotta admit. More high orchestra band concert on last Thursday, and really enjoyed it. Much different than the orchestras when I was in high school. Much more professional, more complex music, and really enjoyed it. For I would like to say it's for high school kids, but I think they were so good on you could have charged for that concert. So that's. Thank you.
Mrs. Runyon?
Thank you, Dr. DeLone. Monday I had quite an interesting time with Mr. Van Schaak and one of the architects that we interviewed on the architect panel sometime back. I can't remember if that was this school year or previous, but it was very interesting to walk with an architect and have an architect talk about our schools' sites and how they're arranged and how a place has an influence on learning. And learned a lot, and I expect you'll be hearing more about that going forward. Been working on the homework task force where we have staff, including administrators and teachers, and then some interested parents, talking about the impact of homework on education and how to balance the needs of family life against schoolwork and learning. and that's been really interesting. And I was also privileged to be at Junction when they had a minor emergency that turned out not to be an emergency. But I just want to give a little shout out to the staff there. Calm and cool under difficult circumstances. And, you know, I'm always very proud of our staff. But when you see them in action, when something really important happens, and they do everything just exactly the way you want them to do it, then you're really proud. And I was very proud of our staff that day. So.
Now, I did see Mr. Rogie at the race to the flagpole, and I talked him into holding the principal of Livermore's shirt. Well, he did the race, but then he hid it somewhere, but he ultimately found that. But anyway, I want to comment to Mr. Nagel that I've never gone to a race where it's been such a perfect day. And I don't know how you arrange that, but we expect that every time, that it will be perfect temperature, beautiful sunshine, and no wind. The course, however, I looked through the pictures, and the pictures they were taking were probably close to a quarter mile from the finish. I looked terrible. I probably felt terrible. So next time, have them take the pictures a quarter mile from the start, and when we're all still smiling or something. But it was a very, very good event, and I congratulate the boosters on putting that on. The money that was raised will go to a good cause, so I'm pleased with that. Two more items. The Livermore Valley Education Foundation has been meeting and actually providing some funds to support these sports programs at the middle schools. Also, for the audience that has nothing better to do than watch this on Saturday morning or perhaps Wednesday night, they should know that the home campaign at the Lawrence Livermore Laboratory, Livermore Valley Education Foundation, is one of the groups that you can contribute to through the home campaign. So if you have kids in school and you work there, that's an opportunity to provide support for the programs in the district. One other item is we are hunting for additional Math Counts volunteers. Math Counts is the chance for you to catch up on your mathematics. And actually the volunteers have both the problem sets and the solutions. The kids only get the problem sets. So it is not that hard to become an effective volunteer, because you're going to read the solutions in advance and look really smart to the students. But we do need more volunteers in the school, and so we'd invite anyone who might find it interesting to join us. Most of the schools have it on Wednesday afternoons, and they just told me they'll take any time. So if we can get a crew together at either before or after school, any day, they would really like to get their program going. And so with that, Madam Superintendent, would you give us your report?
Certainly. So I had the pleasure of attending the very last portion of the Veterans Day celebration that was at Las Positas College. And the reason why I attended was because one of our Granada students, who plays the trumpet, he is a musician, and he played taps in honor of our veterans. So that was very special. And I think the tape's going to be available on our website as well. Many of us did participate in Race to the Flagpole. I walked the 5K, but it was a very brisk walk. And I received a medal, but then I found out everybody received a medal. So there you go. But I understand that Mr. Van Schack placed well in his age bracket.
What is my age?
And but either way, even though it was a competition, it was also a wonderful community event. And so we do want to thank Mr. Nagel for that. And we want to thank everybody from the very littlest ones, even kids in strollers were being pushed, to the more veteran and seasoned runners who still outpaced many of us. It was a lot of fun. I had the opportunity to attend, along with many of us here, the Maryland Avenue Star Test Awards ceremony, and the students received gold, silver, and bronze medals, and this is for either their performance on the CST or Star Test or improvement. And just to see how proud they were with their certificates and their medals clinking and clanging, and their parents taking their photos, really made an impression on everybody, and we were pleased to be part of that. I also, along with Trustee White, attended the Livermore High School Future Farmers of America Green Hand Banquet, and it was exciting to see so many students coming together with the families, and particularly the last time I was with them was after the tragedy of Aaron Jennings passing, and so it was a more somber note, but they celebrated his memory, and there are many new faces, including a new teacher who is part of the program, and so we're building and growing our ag program, no pun intended. A staff survey is going out right now that Mr. Van Schack has been instrumental in creating, and that will be going out to all staff, including the board, and it'll be assessing facilities needs from those who are at the school sites or in different departments. In the as we pursue the idea of a possible facilities bond in either June or November of 2014 coming around the corner, we would definitely want to have input on the highest priorities and needs. I will be sending out a district-wide communication to all families, and the purpose of that is to encourage and remind families who might be eligible to apply for free or reduced price lunch if they qualify. Because we live in the Bay Area, sometimes people are surprised with the high cost of living and how large the families are, that sometimes they will qualify and they don't realize that. And so in addition to the fact that they might qualify in order to receive the free or reduced price lunch, the data that we collect from the numbers of people in our district who qualify, regardless of whether they actually take advantage of the daily lunch, will allow us to receive additional supplemental funding that we are entitled to receive, and that will provide a lot of other vital educational programs. So that will be coming out, but we also want people to understand when they receive this letter that we really do want them to look at the chart and see if they may be eligible, because we definitely want our students to receive any benefit that we can from the state and federal funds. And then finally, as we've had a lot of appreciation and gratitude this evening, we had some wonderful recognitions, but with the Thanksgiving holiday coming up, I'm always reminded of how blessed we really are in this community and how what a pleasure it is to be associated with so many great people in this school district. It's a very close-knit community. You don't find that everywhere, and I think that's one of the blessings that we will all count at Thanksgiving. And I want to share a quote with you from Ralph Marston. "Make it a habit to tell people thank you. 2 simple words. They mean a lot. To express your appreciation sincerely and without the expectation of anything in return. Truly appreciate those around you, and you'll soon find more people around you. Truly appreciate life, and you'll find that you have more of it and enjoy it more." So with that in mind, I just want to take this opportunity at the board meeting. We always do formal recognitions and thanks, but I often don't get to personally thank our board for all of their work and service. We're reading in the news a lot of times right now that about boards and that they only work for 2-hour meetings, and we know that that absolutely isn't true. In the case of our board, there's so much preparation, so many other hours, so many committees and events that you all attend, as well as making sure that you're professionally developed enough to weigh in and to make those informed decisions and work with us. And so we appreciate that. And I also want to take time to thank our audience, the limited audience that they're here. It's quality, not quantity. And particularly my cabinet team and Miss Margaret here and Mr. Glenn Cusco. These are the people who, after very long days, they still come here in the evening, and they're fresh and they are prepared and they're very excited. And so I just want to take this time to thank everyone here, because they are making it a wonderful place where we contribute on behalf of everyone's children in the community every day. And those are my simple words. Thank you.
Good. And with that, we will close the meeting, and it's only 9 o'clock. Very good. Thank you all.